Hello and welcome. I'm Marcus Herze, curator for the Guggenheim Gallery at Chapman University. Today I'm excited to talk with LA-based artist Raul Baltazar. We're going to talk about his practice at large, and in particular his video work and performance work. I first met Raul when I was curating the exhibition Art Across the Border in 2019, and in preparation of this exhibition, learned about his installations and two-dimensional work. Gaining more insight into his video and performance work in the past months as I prepared for our talk was very educational and helped me connect the dots between the different bodies of work Raul creates. I hope that this conversation will do the same for anyone watching. Raul Baltazar was born in 1972 in Los Angeles. He's an artist who works through aesthetic notions giving in Mesoamerican and Western culture. He often mixes performance, video, photography, drawing, painting, mural, and community-based projects to create new relations for the decolonial art object. His work is often driven by the struggle of Mestizo, Xicanx, POC and Mesoamerican Indigenous communities and their revolutionary vision for change in the context of Los Angeles. In addition, his work postulates responses to trauma and the body, examining the experience and rational abuse of power and authority by means of sanctioned or unsanctioned reiterations of violence in contemporary life. Baltazar challenges this by participating in the creation of contemporary cultural production rooted in an artistic research of ancient cultures, where his work opens up a space for healing, communication, and reflection in order to engage publics and communicate the value of a self-reflexive identification with indigeneity. Raul Baltazar received his MFA in public practice from Otis College of Art and Design in 2013 and his BFA in sculpture and new genres from Otis College of Art and Design in 2008. He has exhibited extensively in Los Angeles and internationally in Mexico, Australia, Vienna, Egypt, and Taiwan, and was the 2015 recipient of the California Community Foundation Fellowship for Visual Arts, and in 2019, he participated in Rufino Tamayo Innovation and Experimentation at LACMA. Also in 2019, he was selected by Art News as one of the top 15 LA artists to watch. So hello and welcome, Raul.
Hi, well, thank you very much. I really look forward to beginning to unpack and teasing out some of these ideas that I've been really working hard to communicate through the medium of video and performance.
Okay, let's get right to it.
Let's do it.
You're working in a variety of media, painting, sculpture, installation, performance. How do you determine the medium for a given project? Is that a conceptual decision, or does it evolve out of engagement with certain images and themes, or both?
Well, you know, like you said, I have a transdisciplinary practice, and I like to have look for those the slippage between the mediums. I do have a deep respect for tradition and innovation, so I'm always kind of working with the two. More and more I've been realizing how I repurpose many mediums. I use many mediums that most people might find to be trash or poor aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
What I call chunti or janky, you know. And with that, I'd like to basically attempt alchemy, you know, and to produce something that has aesthetic prowess, you know. And
yeah, alchemy is a good catchword for what you're doing. So maybe you could talk about how you see your role as an artist, what you see as your tasks, and also in that same vein or same thought, maybe you could talk about your studies at Otis, because I think you did study public practice, and that ties in with this question in a way.
I attempted to go to art school because I, you know, was informed like that was the thing to do after high school. So I went to Art Center for a night class, and then I applied to CalArts for experimental animation. and I was rejected. So from there, I went to the military because I wanted to leave, my environment where I grew up, because at that time, I kind of got wind of artists like Ginsberg and Kerouac, like the beat poets, and their outlook to being an artist was more about adventure and living life outside of the norms.
Yeah.
And so that's why I guess I joined the military, so that I could have some type of adventure and to just leave. So to me, that was more of a definition rather than having a degree. And later on, fast forward about, maybe 4 or 5 years, when I came back to LA, I started realizing that there was this hierarchical structure that I couldn't quite even understand because I didn't have the language or the knowledge to really make my way into this art world, and usually the way I found it was like certain artists would drop about 4 or 5 names of artists, and if you just didn't know who they were, then it's like, okay, you don't fit into our world.
Right, you're uninitiated.
Exactly. And so that, on top of being a Chicano kid with brown skin, like, was already just like, dude, like, you're out. Like, you're just some little kind of tagger artist or, like, I wouldn't even, I wasn't a graffiti artist, but it was just kind of like this outsider artist, right? And then the artists of color that were doing well in the art world, I noticed that they had gone through an educational system, and that's why they had access. So for me, art school was more about access. It did give me like the community, and I opened myself to learn. I got a very kind of a feminist education from, Suzanne Lacey and her, community. And I was kind of like an outsider artist again, being the token male Latino in the program. Yeah. So when I would go out to the streets and do a performance, I always would like to do the whole mise en scene, or really like hand the camera over to the audience and say, hey, I want to know how you see me, instead of me having all the control of everything.
Right. You're
and dictating, how this is going to be seen and watched, right? Which is the patriarchal structure, the top-down kind of hierarchy. Yeah. And so by going bottom up, I always thought, well, this is truly a grassroots perspective, right?
Yeah. This reminds me of one of your videos that you sent me, where you are on a ladder and you're trying to climb this ladder.
Oh, yeah.
And hovering over kind of a rubber blow-up castle, and you're handing the camera to...
It's a rope ladder, so people understand, right? Yeah.
Right. Someone in the audience, but you're giving a little bit of direction as to how to hold the camera and what to get into the shot, etc. Yeah. Maybe this is a good moment to take a look at this video.
Okay.
The thing you're going to do is to focus. You want to see the reaction of people a bit, but you want to focus on me doing it. All right?
Going like this, kind of
like this. I'm holding it like that, all right? Hold it in there. Put your hand right here. Got that? Okay, we'll put this around your head so it doesn't fall.
Okay.
Ready?
All right.
Mr. Bunny. Yeah, I reckon.
Hey, how about I stand over here like this?
Yeah, you might even want to go from the side a little bit. Let's show some of the people's reactions here. Okay.
All right, go, Bunny.
Come on, Bunny.
Come on, Bunny! Woo! All right, ready? Bunny! Bunny!
Like Zorro, buddy.
How do you get on this thing? How do you get on this thing?
Son, you gotta do that yourself, man.
You're the one in the suit. Go, Bunny!
I can do it!
You can do it! Eso, eso.
I've never had a bunny on my ladder. Had a nun. Had a nun in full habit. Do the bunny hop. Move your right foot up inside
Nice
the
one, man.
rope. Right foot.
Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody, the rabbit died.
All right, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, whistle.
Yeah.
Here you go, Bunny, man.
Woo!
How
Hey.
does it feel to be the first rabbit on the rope ladder?
Yeah.
How does it feel to be the first rabbit on the rope ladder?
You know,
Guys ready?
it's nice to be a groundbreaker. The society, the first rabbit out here preparing this area for the march tomorrow.
There you go.
All
I
right.
gotta get back to work. Thanks, Bunny.
Thank you. All right.
I don't want to drop it.
Damn.
All right. Good try.
Hard.
Good try.
Okay, this is
It was interesting because that performance was at Fiesta Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this huge corporate festival on Broadway in downtown. And I was like, wow, these corporations don't give a fuck about borders and nationalism. Like, they're just in here, like, signing everyone up, sharing their products. And it was packed. And the following day was going to be the immigration march on the same street, which had over 1 million people and dressed in white, holding the American flag. So this was the first time I ever witnessed immigrants, Latino, Mexicano, Indigena immigrants, so-called immigrants, co-opt the flag.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so powerful what they did. Because usually it was like, oh, wow, fuck the U.S., we're going to burn the flag. And they were like, no, we're going to actually hold it up and show everyone that we're just as proud to be here as anyone else.
Right.
So that was a very smart move, I think.
Yeah. So with this character in mind, I guess takes me back to the question of public practice and what you see yourself as, what you see your role as an artist is. Mm-hmm. In many of your videos and performances, some of which we will see today or have already seen, we encounter Tochtli, which is the Aztec name for rabbit.
Tochtli.
Tochtli.
Like,
okay,
yeah.
Tochtli, I'm sorry. So Tochtli, the Aztec symbol and name for rabbit, has various mythological connotations. In the Aztec calendar, Day Tochtli is a day to commune with the spirits, a day of self-sacrifice and service to something greater than oneself. The word Amatochtli is the collective name for various deities and supernatural figures associated with pulque, an alcoholic fermented magi plant-based beverage that was ritualistically consumed. It represented fertility, parties, and drunkenness. When you reintroduce this character as your alter ego in the Western metropolis of Los Angeles, or as a stand-in for Mexican migrants, how is this character rebuilt or brought over into this new situation?
Well, first of all, okay, the name is Tochtli 7, the Aztec bunny, right? And I never came up with that idea. So ironically, what happened was that I was invited to be sort of a mascot for Mexica New Year at Self-Help Graphics. And that year was Tochtli 7. So the directors asked me if I would dress up, and one of the women, Roxy, who worked there, her grandmother offered to help make the regalia. And so the reason I use regalia, not costume, is because it's not Halloween for me. Like, this character, you could call it like a nahual or a spirit animal. You could call it like it comes into the realm of a regalia for ceremonies with the trickster, the hayoka. It's the backwards energy. It's the clown. It's the one who tests you to see if you truly believe in what you think you believe. And so, for example, if you go to a sun dance, the spiritual clown will be hanging out with shoes and a spray bottle when it's 100 degrees out there in the desert, and everyone has to be barefoot and hasn't drank water for 4 days. So and that's literally what's happening in the Sundance. So that trickster character, he or she's going to test you, you know. And so that's what that character is based off of. Like that's the context, right, of Tochtli. And so I actually figured, okay, I'm going to do this, and I designed a mask, and then we made the costume. And then I actually went to the ceremony at Self-Up Graphics for the Mexica New Year. And a friend of mine, Nuke, happened to have brought some mezcal, you know, which is part of all that. And so to me, when I look back on it, I think like, wow, this is a very like, quote unquote, magical, or like something, so it's a reality that's so poetic and really reminds me that I'm truly living out this this kind of mystical reality. When I put that regalia on, I'm no longer Raul Baltazar. I become Tochtli 7 the Aztec Bunny. Then it gives me all the license to be that character, right? So what I noticed is that it's a very physical, sacrificial act when I don on that regalia. Yeah. So I've done things like I've run the LA Marathon twice with it, you know, pushing my body to its full, you know, maximum. I dislocated my arm in Colima doing a performance and still had to keep doing the performance for another 4 days, you know, or 3 days. You know, I pushed a boulder up Hill Street, you know, and presented it to the steps of Mocha. You know, a VIP party. We took all the VIP audience as hostages, you know, with our toy guns, showing them that they too are susceptible to narco violence. And so it's things like that, you know, where it's like this quote unquote rabbit, because it's really a coyote dressed up as a rabbit, because it's a trickster, right? So what he's trying to do is to recruit all these rabbits, or the prey, right, to become a duplicitous, cunning warrior with him, you know, to you know, embark on this struggle to survive, you know, in the midst of this fucking crazy place we live in, you know, that's so duplicitous and so often unjust, you know. Yeah. I would never be Tochtli 7 for Halloween, you know.
Right. Of course, because it's not meant to be a costume, and it's not meant, even though you might enjoy it in some ways, it's a ritual much more than it is anything else. It's not dress up.
Yeah, it's not a joke. Yeah. It's not a joke, but it's ironic, maybe.
Yeah.
But I am very sincere about it.
Yeah.
That's where that character disarms people, you know, by kind of like, oh, how funny, how ironic, how cute. You know, little do they know I'm talking about, like, people dying, people being killed, people being abused, and I'm confronting sanctioned and unsanctioned forms of violence.
In our Western society, we have eliminated all these religious roots of these rituals. So rituals that were tied to a faith, a belief, a world system, now are just free floating. We have all these and we're using all these methods and of expression, but they're not grounded like they used to be in a specific culture. We have this illusion of a global culture in which we can like mix and match from all cultures that ever existed because they're at our fingertips. But for the most part, in Western society, we have lost that connection. At least a deep connection. I'm not saying there's not religious people and so forth, but it's not formative in the sense, or not as formative as it used to be for a society. So I think that's where that may come from. That when you dress up, it's often banalized or seen as as a fun thing or something like that. But that's exactly what you're saying. It's you're the trickster in the sense of like, yeah, you think I'm making fun, but this is real, and I'm performing something deeper than just putting on a costume or so.
Yeah, it's like, and you're confronting me whether you like it or not.
Right.
Like I really am. And to me, what I call it, it's a momentary victory. But just to kind of go back to what you're saying, so it's interesting, like you say, in this postmodern world, right, where we feel that all ideologies have betrayed us, and so we're cynical now, right, and we don't want to believe in anything.
Right. We
hold back a lot, and so we want to believe, but we can't, because if we do believe, we're too vulnerable, and so the people that are religious hide behind metaphors. And so, in a way, and so that's what I always notice with the church. Like in my personal experience with the Catholic Mass was always like the metaphor of the Eucharist, for example, right? But I always thought to myself, like, man, if you were really ingesting like Jesus or God, like, why are people running and throwing backflips, like on their way back to the pew? Like, why is it always so like a mundane experience that people seem to have? And so when like in my early 20s, when I did finally get to go to Native ceremonies like the Sweat Lodge and the Sun Dance, what I liked about it was like, wow, this isn't a metaphor. It's like, I'm in a fucking sweat lodge. There's a fire right there. It is hot. I want to get out, but I can't. Like, like it's the real deal. Like they're pushing the metaphors aside, and so I like that. So for me, that was the spiritual calling. But it would be like getting a CD, putting it in a museum, and you never realize that the whole reason to that aesthetic device is to listen to the music, right? So it's the same with these ceremonial tools, these objects. And so that's the whole thing. It's like people have this limited relationship with objects and ceremony. And in the art world, we're taught to just look at them from afar and just appreciate them. So, searching for Disco Bunny, wow. That piece was done with Lamia Regragu. Please forgive me if I murdered your name, Lamia. My idea was because I do a residency called the Bunny House, and Lamia came from Paris, and she she had this amazing fervor to learn about Los Angeles. And she came and she, she got to meet a lot of my community, and we really hit it off as friends, as colleagues. And so I asked her if she would be a part of this performance. And she's a professional theater actress, and so I thought it would be interesting for her to do it in French and for her to search for the, disco bunny. And in a way, it kind of was, once again, like, she is coming to learn about LA culture, so she is searching for this cultural experience. But she happened to find, a disco bunny, or me, like, who, like, this is truly my culture, right? Like the disco, the party scene in the early, like, that was probably like the late 80s to mid 90s. A lot of this music was from Italy or like from, other parts of Europe, and we were calling ourselves these promoter groups like the Senators or the X-Men or the, presidents, like, so it was this fantasy of what we couldn't be in this culture, and making it in our imaginary. So I thought that was really cool. And so in a way, it was also this kind of play off of like, okay, like a European coming, to like learn about, LA, but maybe they don't even know that the majority of LA is Mexican American, and so it's like there's this whole layer where like, oh wow, you're not blonde and blue eyed, with the tan at the beach, like, so there's all those layers, and especially because the French actually tried to and did colonize Mexico for a while. I thought that was something fun about that, because it kind of shows that we've healed too, but she's also like a Muslim in France, who's a Parisian, and so I thought all those layers are kind of funny. The piece was done in Elysian Park, which was part of Chavez Ravine. So a lot of people lived there, and they were kicked out to eventually create Dodger Stadium. Before that, they were supposed to make like community housing, but that never happened. And so that big chunk of land right there is very, it's one of the last wild areas of LA. So that whole area right there is Frogtown, and it's sandwiched between, the LA River and the hills and the freeway. And so that place would flood all the time, until the military came and cemented that whole area up. But I always, when I look over that hill, it feels like you could go back in time and just think of like these happy hunting grounds, and with the river there, and the Tangva, who lived there, anyhow.
Yeah, you had this analogy to a cartoon when we talked about it earlier. You kind of compared it to Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. And
yeah.
So there's this whole aspect of the cartoon and, even an early-ish cartoon industry that you're referencing, which has to do with Hollywood.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because, see, this is the thing, that a lot of those cartoons were taken from native trickster tales, so like Bugs Bunny or maybe some Mickey Mouse. And so in a way, it's like I'm taking them back. So it's like a give and take maybe, or going, and then saying, okay, so I'll co-opt your stuff now.
On a formal level, Disco Bunny also seems like a cartoon. It's there's a lot of, I don't know, I think it's sped up slightly, the speed of the movie. There's all sorts of ridiculous things happening. There's these farting noises.
It's the sixth grade sense of humor.
Yeah, sped up music and talk that I frankly cannot understand what is being said, and probably that's the point. And then there's these jokes that you're playing. There's this guy with the barbell barbells running that you then make shakers in post-production and add some shaker sounds to them. And it's the whole thing just seems, in comparison to how you were talking about the trickster and that character earlier, it seems so lighthearted and joyous. And, you take an opportunity when it presents itself artistically, you're not hammering home a message with the video.
You know what you reminded me of right now was that when I went on the Peace and Dignity run the first time, I ran up towards the U.S.-Canadian border with the Lummi people. Yeah. And they have a lot of stories about the Yeti, which is what people call Bigfoot, right? And I met some kids that told me they actually saw the Yeti, and I asked them if they would do a drawing of the Yeti for me, and they did a drawing, and they were like, yeah, this spirit animal exists out here, and we've seen it. And so that was also an inspiration about, kind of creating, instead of the Yeti, it's like Tochtli 7, the Aztec bunny, because that the whole thing is about myth making, right? And these are like urban myths that I'm creating, so if they catch fire and then it actually becomes a little kind of myth, that would be the victory. If people start telling that story, without me having to do it, So in a way it is like trying to start a little fire, with the story making. And so it's once again, it's somewhere between Bugs Bunny and the Yeti, which always comes back to like these animal tales, right? That trickster tales, yeah.
What I was observing though is the kind of not discrepancy, but that it's a heavy subject and it's serious topics and a serious attempt that you're delivering in a lighthearted way that people will not immediately recognize the gravity behind your thinking. Is that part of the trickster strategy?
I think so. For this project, it was made to be lighthearted. Already like the disco music is already very lighthearted in that way. It's almost funny in a way of like these little sounds that make you groove. The music is incredible, and people still dance it to this day. And there's entire subcultures that revolve around this type of music, from Mexico City to all throughout LA and around the world. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well. Okay.
Artist for president. We assert that there is a culture of artists that may be different and separate from all other cultures, and that our culture may be governed or ungoverned according to principles which non-artists find peculiar or offensive. We are tired of explaining ourselves. We are tired of feeling guilty for how we are. We are sick of feeling like frauds in comparison to people who are just that. We are tired of making apologies for who we are. We demand the right to make sense. We demand the right to not make sense. We demand the right to contradict ourselves. We demand the right to change our work. We demand the right to call what we do work.
Oh.
Let's see, your cover version of Meg Cranston's Artist for President, or After Meg Cranston, which is not part of the title. How did you decide to do this work? What was interesting for you in doing this work? Yeah, and how was it received when you first put it out?
Well, Artist for President was done, I believe, about 2000, maybe 8. You know, Meg Cranston was the head of the Fine Arts Department, and she...
At Otis.
Yeah, at Otis, where I was taking Sculpture New Genres. And I really enjoyed her classes. We learned a lot about philosophy and a lot about conceptual art practices. And I got to see her actually perform Artist for President at the Santa Monica Museum of Art. And I was very impressed by her performance. There was no costume or anything. It was just her like reading her speech. And I love the fact that it was a rallying call for justice for artist culture. And it really broke down a lot of these limits, you know, and it championed a lot of our duplicity. I took that, and then when I started reciting it, I kind of also started realizing that there's a lot of gaps of things that in her reality, you know, that she has access to. It's like, you know, but I thought to myself, like, man, I haven't even been in the situation to have these problems. Like, you know, for whether or not a museum will, you know, connect our works or not, or the fact that they expect for us to, you know, carry our own sculptures, you know, to you know, artwork to the show. Or, but then again, there was things that had actually happened, you know, like a curator talking about another artist's work to me, you know, or like all these little microaggressions or things that people don't even realize, you know, and how it pisses you off. And as an artist, what I discovered with that piece was like basically the gaps between, you know, what a white female professional artist, you know, like between their, you know, privilege and me as a brown Latino male, Chicano male, like going through, you know, like trying to make it through this art world. So I just noticed that they had this incredible head start or access that I still didn't, you know. But they've always been allies to teach me and how to get in there. That's what they were doing. They were training me. But then all of a sudden I started seeing this cultural shift where a lot of artists were actually like, hey, I'm not trying to, you know, like to assimilate, you know. I'm actually really comfortable and like, you know, the grittiness of our culture. And then it was also like hip hop culture, you know, and punk rock culture, and, you know, just LA urban culture. That was also a part of my culture, you know, that was also growing, you know. So, yeah, you know.
Did Meg ever see the work, and did she comment on it in some way?
I sent her a video link, but I never really got any feedback from her. So I hope she gets it. I think she's a very smart woman. I think she would. you know? Yeah.
Was that the first time that you used the Tochtli regalia in a video?
No, I think I had used it in this costume race that I did before. It was one, a running race. I joined a race, which actually was a Halloween race. So I guess I gotta take back what I said about Halloween.
Right, and the use of the regalia. I remember, I think I saw this. This was in Pasadena, right?
Yeah. It was a costume race, which was funny. But yeah, that Artist for President. Also, I started using flyers as part of the artwork, the video, the live performance. I performed that at the Chicano Resource Center at UCLA. I did it at Otis. I did it. Where else? I performed it quite a few times. People got a kick out of it because I'm being so serious and I'm saying things that people really get, and then at the same time I'm in this rabbit outfit, But I did it at Cal Arts too for like 1,200 art students, So it's fun to perform that,
So thank you so much, Raul, for your time and for talking about your work so freely and in such depth. Actually, I could say that this is an edit of the conversations that we've had, and that we're going to put up a link on this page to the full interview, which you can listen to as a podcast. And the full interview runs something around 70 minutes. So thank you so much for all your time and all the insights into your work.
Great. Thank you as well, Marcus. And thank the audience for, checking this interview out, checking out some of my work. I really think it is so important for people to actually invest the time and the work that it takes in order to open up this world that I'm trying to communicate,
Good final words.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Okay, peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.